Okay, magandang araw Pilipinas at sa lahat ng kababayan natin sa buong mundo. Kumusta po kayo? Ako po si Bay Joel. Ituloy ho natin yung disinformation issue na pinag-uusapan sa Senado ngayon. At yung huling pinakita natin, yung fact-checker na Verifiles, kung paano silang ginamit, no? Based doon sa article ni Thinking Pinoy, hopefully napanood nyo na. Na-check ninyo yung website, na-verify ninyo, nabasa ninyo, kung hindi man, balikan ho ninyo. At saka sa mga bago hong nanonood, meron hong ibang series ito, pang 4 na ho ito. No? So pag dugtong-dugtungin natin, ayoko ho yung isang mahaba na may isang oras dahil lahat tayo may busy ginagawa at alam ko walang makakaupo na isang oras para manood na isang video. So although, pag nanonood tayo ng movie, kahit 2 oras, okay tayo, no? But that's a question, pagka-information. But anyway, nothing much is interesting, but it's good to know. So, hopefully napanood ninyo. Kung hindi nyo pa ho napapanood, panoorin ho ninyo. So anyway, itong ating point ngayon, kanina is sabi natin, yung Facebook, merong fact checker, Rappler, and Verifiles. Yung Verifiles founder, si Ellen Tordesillas, nasa harap ng Senado at pinuprotektahan ng mga Senado nating magagaling, si Senator Robin Padilla at si Senator Tulfo. At sabi nila, itong mga journalists na ito, dapat protektahan natin. Huwag nating i-criminalize yung libel against sa kanila dahil tatrabaho sila. Dito natin i-criminalize itong maliliit. Okay? So now, pinakita natin doon, bakit mo puprotektahan itong mga taong nagsisensor? Okay? So ngayon, ipapakita ho ako sa inyo na Senate ng Philippines yung pinanood natin kanina, ito Senate ng USA, ito kinwestiyon ng Facebook. Okay? So, panoorin ho natin, mga 4 minutes ho ito, kinos-examine ho si Mark Zuckerberg dito. Kung hindi nyo kilala si Mark Zuckerberg, saan lupalop ng mundo kayo nagtatago? Anyway, si Mark Zuckerberg, yan ang founder ng Facebook, kung hindi nyo alam. Malamang alam na ninyo. Pero may mga iba sa atin, nakakapagtaka, hindi pa nila alam. Mark Zuckerberg, siya ho yung CEO or, may-ari ng Facebook. Okay? Well, major shareholder ng Facebook. Pero siya ang the name behind the Facebook founding. So anyway, panoorin natin ito. It's a Senator Josh Hawley confronted Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing about an internal problem tool known as Sentra. Ito yung sabi nila na spying tool ng Facebook. Alam natin, Facebook, pinakamalaking social media sa Pilipinas na ginagamit ng mga Pilipino magmula sa tuktok ng bundok na inaabot ng satellite na hopefully yung satellite na nakakarating doon at hanggang sa kasulukan ng squatter sa Pilipinas ay gumagamit ng Facebook. Okay? Hindi ko lang alam kung may mga kapatid tayo na mga katutubo sa taas, pero alam ko, mga nakausap ko yung mga ibang katutubo, pumunta sila rito, yung mga IP. Meron ho silang Facebook account, may YouTube sila, may mga telepono sila, yung mga tao nila doon sa kataas-taasan ay may access. So, ang Facebook is ginagamit. Pero, hindi lang ho ng Pilipino. Marami rin ho gumagamit. Panoorin ho natin ito. Okay. So, here we go.
What is the Facebook internal tool called Sentra?
Senator, I'm not aware of any tool with that name.
Well, let me see if this refreshes your memory. There's a demonstrative now over my shoulder. Sentra is a
Gulat ako dun sa mukha ni Mark Zuckerberg, mukhang alien. Sorry, I'm just like, oh, wow.
tool that Facebook uses to track its users, not just on Facebook, but across the entire internet. Sentra tracks different profiles that a user visits, their message recipients, their linked accounts, the pages they visit around the web that have Facebook buttons. Sentra also uses behavioral data to monitor users' accounts, even if those accounts are registered under a different name. And you can see a shot here, a screenshot provided to us of the Sentra platform. We blocked out the user's name in the interest of privacy, although you can see this individual's birth date and age, when they first started using Facebook, their last login, as well as all manner of trackings. How many different devices have they used to access Facebook? How many different accounts are associated with their name? What accounts have they visited? What photos have they tagged? And on and on and on. Mr. Zuckerberg, how many accounts in the United States have been subject to review and shut down through Sentra?
Senator, I do not know because I'm not actually familiar with the name of that tool. I'm sure that we have tools that help us with our platform and community integrity work, but I am not familiar with that name.
Do you have a tool that does exactly what I've described and that you can see here over my shoulder? Or are you saying that doesn't exist?
Senator, I'm saying that I'm not familiar with it, and that I'd be happy to follow up and get you and your team the information that you would like on this. But I'm limited in what I can what I'm familiar with and can share today.
It's always amazing to me, Mr. Chairman, how many people before this committee suddenly develop amnesia. Maybe it is something about the air in the room. Let me ask you this. When a Facebook employee accesses a user's private information, like their private messages or their personally identifiable data, is a record made of that, Mr. Zuckerberg?
Sorry, Senator, could you repeat that?
Is a record made of any time a Facebook employee accesses a user's private information, personally identifiable information, for example, messages? Is a record made anytime a Facebook employee does that?
Senator, I believe so.
Does it trigger an audit?
Senator, I think sometimes it may.
How many audits have been conducted?
Senator, I do not know the exact number of
Can you
audits.
give me a list?
Senator, we can follow up on that to see what would be useful here.
Will you, I'm almost finished, Mr. Chairman. Will you commit to giving us a list of the number of times Facebook employees have accessed users' personal account information without their knowledge? Yes or no?
Senator, we should follow up on what would be useful here. It is, of course, in the operations of the company, if someone reports something, sometimes necessary for people at the company to go review and understand the context around what is happening when someone reports something. So this is fairly frequent and is a matter of course. We do have security systems that can detect anomalous patterns to flag, but we should follow up in more detail on what you're interested in.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just say in closing that what we have here is clear evidence of coordination between Twitter, Google, and Facebook. Mr. Zuckerberg knows he has the tools to track this, but he either doesn't remember or won't commit to letting us see it. We have evidence of Facebook tracking its own users all across the web. Mr. Zuckerberg won't answer questions about it, can't remember the name, isn't sure if the tool is deployed in this way, and won't commit to giving us basic information. I submit to you that this is both totally unacceptable and totally predictable, because it is exactly what these tech companies have done to the American people and to Congress for years now, which is why it is time we took action against these modern-day robber barons. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, now, naintindihan nyo yung sinabi ko na sa Senate ka, you will show proof, you will show documents. Pag meron kang binrot up na issue, katulad dito, yung issue nila na ini-spy ang may nang-i-spy ang Facebook sa lahat ng users, which is, by the way, they have the evidence, pero deny, or ayaw niya ipakita somehow, but eventually they will dig. But he said, we have the proof here, na ito yung ginagamit. So, wala hong sikretong naitatago, lahat na uungkat. Kaya kayo, na gumagamit ng Facebook, do not for a second think na kahit pagtago kayo sa ibang muka ng aso o ng pusa or ano bang malignong muka, hindi nyo ilalagay dahil akala nyo hindi kayo makikita. Hey, wake up. Alam nila ginagawa nyo. Yung mga sikreto ninyo sa mga messenger, boy, somebody's watching everything. So, alam nila. Kaya, magtago man kayo, huwag kayong makialam dahil sabi nyo, nanahimik lang ako, hindi nila ako alam. Yan ang alam nyo, yung akala nyo, no? So, anyway, yun yung point doon. Pero what I was trying to brought up here was the Senate committee hearing. They have the documents, they prove the documents, kung ano yung allegations nila. Ito yung nakita namin. So, we're trying to affirm kung tama nga ba itong nakita namin. Ngayon, kung i-deny mo ito, well, we're gonna subpoena or, well, first request muna yung mga dokumento mo about dito at matatie up nila yon. Kung hindi nila ibibigay, isusupina nila yon. So, ganyan ho. So, Senator Tulfo, pagka nagbubanggit kayo na marami kayong narinig, or maraming pumunta sa inyo at nag-present ng ganito, nag-complain ng ganito, eh, okay naman na i-present ninyo sila, protecting their identity, yung muka, pero may dokumento. Merong tao, merong testigo para hindi ho kayo malibel. Dahil, well, I think ang senator at saka congressman is merong immunity sa lawsuit, ano? So wag ko naman ho kayo magtago doon, no? Tapos ilalagay niyo yung ordinaryong mamamayan sa ano, no? Hindi naman yata fair 'yon. Kaya ho kami naggaganto, or ako na nagsasalita dahil in fairness, so malaki respeto namin sa inyo. Nagpapasalamat kami na ang interest ninyo para maprotektahan ang mga tao at ang bayan. Pero kung halimbawa hindi naman fair, may discrimination, lumalabas yung suporta natin, tinitigil natin yung suporta, i-call out natin yon. Hindi kami yung tipong, basta idol namin yan, hindi magkakamali yan, lahat ng gagawin yan, tama. Hindi doon tayo magkakaproblema. No? So, ako noon, nung panahon na ni President Duterte, gustong-gusto ko yung gawa niya. Suportado ko siya. Pero pagka meron siyang sinabing mali, I don't necessarily agree to it. No? Pero hinahanap ko yung pinaghugutan. Saan galing ito? Bakit niya sinabi ito? Bakit ganito ang attitude niya rito? So, I did not support President Duterte when he pushed for yung mandate ng well, he didn't, I don't know if he pushed for it, pero yung kampanya about the vaccination, I was so against it kasi at the time may mga nakita na ako na data na delikado, na hindi safe and needs to be investigated. Hindi ko kinontra yon dahil ayoko nung bakuna, pero sabi ko hinay-hinay lang. Let's look into it. Tingnan natin kung ito ba'y makakatulong talaga o makakasakit sa publiko? Okay, so yun ang punto doon, ano? Okay, lumabas tayo sa Amerika, pumunta tayo sa Australia, no? Because they also reported on, about fact checkers sa Facebook. All right, let's open this up and panoorin ho natin.
Tech giants Facebook and Twitter are censoring journalism critical of Joe Biden and making it impossible for you to learn about developments in the US election. Facebook has become the most egregious of these tech giants. Hiding behind third-party fact checkers, it is promised are independent and entirely non-partisan. These fact checkers have extraordinary powers to censor news stories they disagree with, demonetize news organizations, and even ban news outlets entirely. They are granted these powers on the provision that they are balanced in their judgments and that they do not have agendas, and most importantly, that they don't campaign for or against one side of politics. Well, Sky News Australia has launched an investigation into these fact checkers, and what we have uncovered is disturbing evidence of political bias and a lack of accountability at the top levels of the certification process. In the most
Political bias, okay? Fact checkers, political bias.
extreme example we have uncovered, an outspoken Twitter activist critical of Donald Trump, who brags about being on Team Hillary Clinton, has become the independent expert in charge of who becomes a fact checker. But
Sounds familiar? Okay? Yung Rappler was very critical of Duterte. Verifiles, very critical of Duterte, becomes independent fact checker of Facebook. It's the same thing here. See a pattern
first, to understand how the flow of information became so corrupted, to the point where faceless activists from other countries are threatening to ban voices they disagree with. But we have to go back to the 2016 US election. The race, Democrats thought, was in the bag. After Democrats lost the 2016 election, a movement against conservative opinions began gaining momentum as progressives opted to lay the blame of their devastating election loss at the feet of misinformation on Facebook. Rather than looking at their own failed political strategies or policies, progressives opted to blame, without evidence, that the election was stolen through Russian misinformation spread on Facebook.
Yep, yan ang nangyari. Now, sa Pilipinas, hindi nila napigilan si President Duterte, tapos ngayon, si President PBM. They have to strategize dahil nakita nila, effective yung ginawa nila. Yung time na natalo ni Trump si Hillary, siniguro nila na control nila ang narrative after that. Kaya pinursige nila hanggang sa na-kick out si Trump, but it was a forceful political, will. To the point, I don't even want to say it, but panoorin natin, tuloy natin.
Without evidence for their claims, they alleged President Donald Trump greenlit the entire operation.
They sold about $100,000 of advertisements to what they call inauthentic accounts operated out of Russia during the campaign. Facebook says they've shared this information with investigators. Are you concerned that these ads may have deliberately targeted voters in some of those key swing states?
This is just one platform. We need to find out what is the evidence with respect to other social media platforms like Twitter, for example.
There is significant evidence of collusion. There is ample evidence, and indeed there is, of collusion of people in the Trump campaign with the Russians. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy.
Evidence suggests, indeed, Trump has been a pawn of the Russians.
By the way, this accusation sila noon na Russia has just been proven. I mean, like, inimbestigahan nila for 4, 5 years, 6 years. They couldn't find anything until to the point na sabi nila there was no Russian collusion. Okay? So, yeah, but you can imagine the kind of narrative they were pushing back then. So, yun yung sinasabi ko na, I'm sure ito, kung ano itong binibenta nilang narrative sa Amerika, yun din pinag-uusapan sa Pilipinas because they took the source from their funders, yung supporters nila. Nakita ho natin yan, hindi ho kaila yan. Okay? So, pero sa atin, hindi natin alam na bias na pala yun because we did not have people that are talking the other side. So, one-sided talaga. So, everybody thinks na, whatever's happening now, yun ang ano. Ngayon, apektado tayo sa kaguluhan. Yun yung sinasabi na, when America comes, everybody catches the cold. Yun ang nangyari. Pag bumahing dito, lahat tayo tatanggap natin yung virus. Kaya ito yung nangyayari ngayon. Ano? So, there are foreign policies that are affecting the entire world. Okay? So, hindi ho ito, nasabihin natin na, sila lang maapektuhan yan. Hindi ako maapektuhan yan. Pag tumaas ang presyo ng gasolina dahil sa maling policies. Okay? Hindi mo na ako pupunta dyan, pero I can talk about that on the next video kung bakit apektado ang Pilipinas sa presyo ng langis, sa presyo ngayon ng mga bilihin at presyo ng kuryenteng binabayaran niyo dyan sa Pilipinas. Okay? Kaya wag niyo muna akong atakihin dyan dahil may ibang segment yan na pag-uusapan. Dito na lang muna tayo, itong disinformation. But what I'm saying here, kung ang kinukonsume natin na information is already false, it's disinformation, it's a misinformation, hindi ho tayo magkakaroon ng tamang direksyon. Hindi natin mapuprotektahan ang publiko, ang bansa. Kaya importante ho itong communication, itong free speech, yung information. Dahil ito yung gagamitin ng kalaban. Okay? So kaya ako pinapakita ito para sana maintindihan, mapanood ni Senator Robin Padilla, shout out sa iyo, at saka kay Senator Rapi Tulfo, shout out sa inyo dyan. Please, listen to this before po kayo mag-push niyan at intindihin nyo ho. Let's be fair. Dahil may pinanggalingan ho itong hugot natin. Katulad ng hugot ninyo, hindi namin sigurado. But let's move on.
And you start to see a pattern where he basically spouts Putin's lies, then we have to ask the most unusual and frightening question about our own president.
Why this president seems to be putting Russia's interests ahead of our own.
Well, Christy, the president's tweet trying to make...
Sabi nila noon, yung time na yon, with all this narrative, sabi nila, ito si Trump, pag naging presidente ito, magkakagyera. Yung whole time na nasa liderato siya, peaceful, walang giyera. Calamity nga, wala masyado eh. You know, that's another topic. Pero ngayon, pagpasok ni Biden, giyera kaliwa kanan. Nagkakagiyera na ngayon ang Turkey at saka Syria with the Kurdistans. Nagkakaroon na meron na, alam na natin yung Ukraine at saka Russia. Nagkakagulo. Left and right ang kaguluhan. Ang North Korea is threatening. So, yung mga sinasabi nila noon is a narrative that's not proven. It was all accusations. Okay? Pero, pinaniwalaan sila dahil credible nga raw. Okay?
The case that he's not a Russian asset really just undercuts his own defense. The president's tweet couldn't have been scripted better if it was written by Putin himself.
This is nothing short of treasonous because it is a betrayal of the nation. He is giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
Is there influence, whether witting or unwitting, by the Russians over President Trump?
The possibility, the very real possibility, that President Putin holds damaging information over President Trump.
Can you imagine? It's like, oh man, every day for many years, ganito sinasabi nila. And they never prove it. Matter of fact, it proves the opposite. It proves the opposite.
Now, some more tech-savvy progressives saw this hoax as an opportunity to gain a paycheck from Facebook under the guise of fact-checking misinformation. Of course, these fact-checkers never probe conspiracy theories such as the Russia collusion hoax. No, instead they aggressively target conservatives and have on several occasions threatened this news organization and ordered we amend headlines to appease their opinions. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg drew criticism from these progressives shortly after the election for rejecting their premise. Personally, I think the idea of fake news on Facebook, which is a very small amount of the content, influenced the election anyway, I think is a pretty crazy idea. Voters make decisions based on their lived experiences, he said. I do think there is a certain profound lack of empathy in asserting that the only reason someone could have voted the way they did is that they saw fake news, Mark Zuckerberg said. He went on to say, if you believe that, then I don't think you have internalized the message the Trump supporters are trying to send in this election. But eventually, cracks appeared in Zuckerberg's rhetoric, and he caved in to those who would eventually become the fact-checkers, today's controllers of information. Enter the International Fact-Checking Network, a coalition of progressive, self-proclaimed fact-checkers who wrote an open letter to Mark Zuckerberg shortly after his comments were published. We believe that Facebook should start an open conversation on the principles that could underpin a more accurate news ecosystem on its newsfeed. The global fact-checking community is eager to take part in this conversation. Well, I imagine they would be quite eager. These fact-checkers are being paid for the task of censoring content, and policing the vast depths of Facebook is a giant task indeed. Facebook won't publicly reveal how much the fact-checkers are paid, but you could imagine it would be substantial given how important the company now places their efforts on misinformation. The International Fact-Checking Organization also managed to monopolize this newly blossoming industry. Facebook has promised to only use the fact-checkers certified by the group, the International Fact-Checking Organization. Now, this is quite a responsibility. You would hope that members of this body are above reproach. Tragically, for the free exchange of ideas, Sky News can reveal that one of the most prolific fact-checking certifiers is an outspoken Twitter activist who politically barracks for Hillary Clinton and even appears on propaganda network Russia Today to attack Donald Trump. Meet American University School of Communication professor Margot Suska, the certifier who is granted 19 fact-checking licenses or reviews to organizations wanting to police your content. Some of the bodies she has approved or audited include the Associated Press, Check Your Fact, Decryptors, Lead Stories, MediaWise, and The Dispatch. Ms. Suska has tweeted that it would be a, quote, dereliction of duty to even broadcast speeches of Donald Trump. And in 2019, Ms. Suska posted a happy snap with failed presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, where she admitted, I've been on Team Hillary since 2008, to be honest.
Wow. So, you see the bias here? It's exactly the same thing. Kita natin yung IFCN nung binasa natin kay sa article ni Thinking Pinoy. they are the ones that's dictating Facebook on how the flow is information should be. So they are controlling. Galit sila kay Trump, galit sila sa conservative, but they are supporting Hillary. It's the same thing with Crapper. It's the same thing with Verifiles. Okay, so we see a pattern here. Kung hindi ito nakikita ng Senate, man, they need to start doing the job. They need to, use that money na binabayad sa kanila, sa kanilang staff, to investigate, to protect the interest of the public, because this is not the interest of the public. A one-sided flow information is not a healthy conversation, is not a healthy dialogue. It leads to conflict of interest and disinformation na, maling decision ng mga tao.
Honest. And then she said she was disappointed that Hillary Clinton's likability did not resonate with the public in the 2016 election. She went on to say, "My boyfriend was her nuclear policy fellow for a year when she was in the Senate. He says that she's the smartest, most likable person. It just never came through, I guess. So sad." Ms. Suska also retweeted content that said, quote, "A projected Joe Biden win won't erase the racism shown by Donald Trump and embraced by nearly half the country's electorate." Half the country? A racist? That doesn't seem very objective to me. In one of her several appearances on Russia Today, Ms. Suska admits that she cannot be objective about Donald Trump.
It's hard for me to be an objective observer of this presidential administration when for years now they have continuously tried to delegitimize and marginalize news reporters for doing their constitutionally protected job.
Okay, anyway, there's nothing much to prove here, no? Yung fact checkers are one-sided, and even to the point saying they cannot be objective. They are subjective. So, protektahan natin sila. When somebody is subjective, they have the propensity to spin the truth to their agenda, to their side. Senator Tulfo, you know that. You're a journalist. For heaven's sake, for many years, you should know that. And I know you know that. So please, I hope marinig mo ito. If I'm the only one that's saying it, I hope people will understand. You're treading on the rights of the people, the rights to get the truth, to get to the truth, to hear the truth, to at least hear both sides of the dialogue, both sides of the fence. Let's not block it. Let's not. They already have the power, the money, the influence, the backing, the support, and everything. Ang maliliit na tao, konting-konti lang ho. Konti-konti lang yung laban ng tao itong social media gamitin para ma-express, ma-share kung ano yung taliwa doon sa nakikita natin na single-side narrative. Please. Yun lang ho. Okay? To close this, panoorin natin ito. 8 minutes lang naman ito, no? But let's judge from here.
Multiple mainstream media outlets have been caught reading from the same script and advancing an identical propaganda narrative following the FBI raid on former President Donald Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. Numerous media outlets read from the exact same script, repeating a similar talking point following the raid, saying, "Sources say there's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums." The official narrative pushed by these mainstream media outlets attempts to use guilt by association to tarnish criticism of the raid. According to the media, anybody who criticizes the unprecedented raid on the home of a US president is a conspiracy theorist calling for violence.
Sources tell ABC News there's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums. Sources say there's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums.
Sources also telling ABC News there's been a strong reaction from some extreme groups online, including QAnon and other groups.
There's been a strong reaction to the raid on extremist and QAnon-related forums,
including those that were active before January 6th.
Including those that were active prior to January 6th.
Including those that were active prior to January 6th.
Involved in the January 6th insurrection.
Including those that were active prior to the January 6th riot.
Some have been calling for violence and even a civil war.
Some of them include calls for violence and even a civil war.
Some of them include calls for violence in online forums
and even civil war.
This was the top comment on the search on the pro-Trump site The Donald last night. Quote, lock and load with references to a civil war.
Talking very violently about civil war.
Searches for civil war spiked.
They're talking about civil war. Civil war. Civil war.
Civil war. Civil war. Civil war.
The disturbing footage of mainstream media talking heads repeating the exact same scripted lines suggests the public are being force-fed government propaganda about the FBI raid, which raises the question, what do they have to hide, and why are they so determined to make everybody see the event in the same way? This is mind control in action. There's a reason they are called programs and programming. And it's not the first time the media has been caught parroting from the same propaganda script.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our Treasure Valley communities, the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about trouble and trying to be irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
Plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Are you surprised?
Yes. It is extremely dangerous to our democracy, but it's not the equal distribution of rights to information. What's dangerous to the democracy is that when you suppress a certain group of people in favor of those other group, kahit pa walang agenda yung grupo na yun, it's still not right to discriminate. It's dangerous to our democracy. Pero ang pinupoint nila dito, dangerous daw sa democracy na magkaroon ng rights yung ibang flow of information. It has to be on their side only. But then we already understood that they are being used as a tool to bring out propaganda and narrative. So yun lang yung gusto nilang marinig ng mga tao. So ngayon ng Pilipinas, kung ang marinig ng Pilipinas ay yung side lang ng narrative at propaganda dahil isusuppress yung maliliit na nagsasabi, teka muna, hindi yan ang naintindihan ko, hindi yan ang narinig ko, hindi yan ang nabalitaan ko eh. Merong sinasabing ganito, pakinggan natin, panoorin natin. Kung bakit? Dahil pag may nagsasabi ng saliwasa, nakikita natin o babalitaan natin, yung sinasabi na, when there's a smoke, there must be a fire where it's coming from. So let's investigate. Parang science din yan eh. Science is you cannot say this is the right thing and the other one is wrong and this is the right thing. The science, you take it to the lab. You scrutinize, you examine, and you figure out kung ano ang factual data. It's not about one side. So, katulad ng sinasabi ko kanina, sa isang ano natin na, pag ang lawmakers natin, yung Senate natin, ang pinuprotektahan, isang grupo with the propensity to stay on a narrative dahil may nagko-control sa kanila, you begin to question their ability to analyze situation. Are you supporting the interests of the public? Or are you defending the special interest group kung paano ko kontrolin? Dahil, 6 years from now, may administrasyon, and not only that, yung current administration, if they control the narrative, they can come up with any lies just like what they did with the Russian collusion, which is a lie. Palalabasin nila, mabablackmail na yung presidente, magpapalabas sila ng para pag merong foreign policy ang presidente ngayon, si Ferdinand Marcos Jr., meron siyang foreign policy na taliwas sa gusto ng ibang bansa na nagkokontrol, sasabihin sa kanya, kung gagawin mo yan, i-smear ka namin sa communication. We control the media. Yung mga maliliit mo, hindi makagalaw yan dahil yung mga trolls na tinatawag nila, yung mga social media influencers, yung mga netizens, they're scared shit because we're gonna take them to court on libel. Kahit patuto yung sinasabi nila, can they afford a lawyer? Can they afford a time in court? No, of course not. So they're just gonna keep their mouth shut and we will control the narrative. And that's exactly what's gonna happen. Ngayon, yung sinasabi ni Senator Tulfo na itong i-maintain yung pag-criminalize para doon sa maliliit at hindi dito sa mga professional. To begin with, bakit pinag-uusapan ito? Alam ko may law na rito Basahin nga natin. Napanggit ng ating senator na yung attack and collect sabi niya parang yun yung extortion yung sinasabi niya Now, kung pagdating sa extortion, ang totoo niyan hindi nakakailangan ng libel yan Meron ng crime ang may sariling punishment ang extortion, no? Okay, ito from the office of Nicolas and de Vega, law offices, Manila ito, Philippines. Ito yung crime of light threats is a crime committed by a person who shall threaten another with the infliction upon the person, honor, or property of the latter or of his family of any wrong not constituting a crime. Okay, basahin natin, intindi natin Light threats, hindi ako abogado but marunong tayo magbasa, marunong tayo mag-analyze at umintindi, Light threats is punishable under Article 283 of the Revised Penal Code. The elements of light threats pursuant to Article 283 of the Revised Penal Code as follows. The offender makes a threat to commit a wrong. 2. The wrong does not constitute a crime. 3. There is a demand for money, or that other condition is imposed even though not unlawful. The offender has attained his purpose or that he has not attained his purpose. Ito example. For example, if A, si Juan, threatens Pedro, B, that he will expose the infidelity na iladladlad niya yung kanyang pangangabit unless bigyan siya ng pera, let's say 2,000, then such blackmail is considered as light threats, right? Mayor, nakita ko yung ginawa nyo kagabi. Pag hindi kayo nagbigay ng pera, ilaladlad ko kayo bukas sa media. Magsasalita ako sa Facebook, sa YouTube. Okay? Although exposing the infidelity of someone is not a crime, kung totoo nga naman, The act of blackmailing in exchange for money or subject to a condition is tantamount to life threats. See? Kahit pa totoo yung ginawa niya, no? Pag binlackmail mo, pag may pinatay, na ikaw naka-witness, pinatay mo yan, witness ako, ilalatid kita, bigyan mo ko pera. Okay? Kahit na illegal yun, pag binigyan mo ng pera yung tao, blackmailing yun, no? So, the crime of life threats is punishable by arresto mayor or imprisonment within the range of 1 month and 1 day to 6 months. So, meron ng kaso itong pangingikil na sinasabi niya. Yung attack and collect. Bakit napunta sa libel, a defamation? Ibang kaso yun, no? Okay, dadagdag mo, no? Kasi 1 month nga lang ito, so 6 years yun, ha? Mas lalong nakakatakot. I don't know of anybody that's want to do this. So, dito ko tatapusin itong series na ito at hopefully marami tayong natutunan at hopefully makarating ho sa kanila at marinig ho nila yung hinaing na hindi ho kami sang-ayon or kung sino man ako, alam ko, hindi ako sang-ayon. Dahil hindi ko pinoprotektahan yung interest ko. I have no interest on this. I can do my own channel, I can do my own business without getting into politics or whatever na pinag-uusapan nila. My concern is yung bayan natin kung one-sided na lang yung information dahil takot na yung mga tao magsalita. Wala, ayaw nang makialam. Mag-aano na lang sila, magti-TikTok na lang sila, maggagawa na lang sila ng travel vlog and they're not gonna be interested kung merong lukuhan, nakawan or anong nangyayari sa community nila. Dahil sa mga tiwaling opisyal, dahil takot na sila makialam. Dito na lang ako, sasayaw na lang ako sa TikTok. Hindi na ako makikialam dyan, madidimanda pa ako dyan, makukulong pa ako dyan. Ganun ba ang gusto nating mangyari? Na tumahimik ang mamamayan, hindi na magsasalita. Dahil takot na. That is a threat to our democracy, kung tawagin nila. So, what are we gonna do? Please. Kung ayaw nyo mag-subscribe, that's fine. I-share nyo. Kung ayaw nyo i-like, that's fine. Kung gusto nyo mag-comment, mag-comment kayo. Huwag lang yung babuyan at huwag bastusan. Huwag hong magmurahan. Let's be educated. Intelligent conversation. Bigay nyo yung input nyo. Kung wala naman kayong input, that's fine. Pero kung sang-ayon kayo, sige po, subscribe ho kayo please. At marami ho tayo pag-uusapan. At i-share nyo kung gusto nyo makarating sa karamihan. At hopefully, makarating dun sa Senado. Bago ho nila ituloy yung balak nila. Dahil pag tinuloy ho nila yan, guaranteed ho yan. One-sided ang information. Kalimutan nyo na ho yung Dahil kahit lalabas ka sa Facebook, pupunta ka sa iba, na you have the freedom to express dahil di ka masasensor, well, there is a law that's gonna censor you. Okay? So, that is a threat to our democracy. The freedom of speech. Maraming salamat po sa inyong time at hopefully subaybayan nyo ang iba pa nating segment na pag-uusapan dito ho sa YEPRO. Ito ho ay talakayan. Ito ho ay community, na pag-uusapan. Pero hindi lang ho ito sa mga ganitong issue. Ang point ho talaga ng page na ito is to get into some livelihood information. Kaya ang YEPRO ho stands for Youth, Housewives, Empowerment Program. Kaya ang ating hong slogan is ang hangad ng mamamayan ay pangkabuhayan tungo sa kaunlaran. Yun ang purpose natin, no? Kaya lang, pagdating dito sa trampling the rights of the public ni Juan na maliliit na tao, hindi ho tayo pwedeng manahimik. We must speak out. Dahil yun na lang natitira nating rights. Okay, so yun ho ang purpose ng YEPRO. Ito ay talakayan, just asking for a friend. Nagtatanong lang po. Okay, so maraming salamat at sa susunod ho nating pagkikita. Ako po si By Joel. At stay safe. Please pray every day.